Hello, small baby humans. How are you today? Oh, I'm good.
So, it's cold. It's really cold. Thank God the wind isn't blowing, or it would be redonkulous outside. So, today is Thursday, January 28th, and this is In Case You Missed American History. And if you're watching this, that means you weren't able to get to class today, and that's okay. I hope you're well, and I hope those around you are well, and I hope that you're staying warm on this. God, I feel like it's the coldest day so far. Like at least like temperature, not wind chill, but temperature. So here's the plan. I'm going to take a few minutes and run you guys through everything that we did today. We're going to do the reminders and the schedules and finish up the chapter on the progressives and get you guys ready to take the test tomorrow on Friday. So let's get rolling. And remember, as always, if you have any questions about the video or anything from class or anything at all, Marshall High School, you could come in during my office a half hour from 1 to 1:30 every day. If you need the link for that, let me know. You could email me, you could chat me, you could video call me, and I will do my best to help you out and get you squared away on whatever it is you're looking to know. So your reminders, the assignment that I gave you guys on Monday called Modern Progressives is due by midnight tomorrow, which is Friday. Okay, so it's due January 29th. And if you're having any trouble with that, let me know. And schedule things for the rest of the week. We're going to wrap up our progressives unit today. We're going to take the test on the progressives tomorrow. It's going to be another Google form with some multiple choice, some matching, and one short answer. Today, if you missed it, or if you're watching this early, the STAR math test was third hour today. So if you missed that, I'm sure they're going to try to figure out a way to reschedule it with you so you can take it. And we are doing the STAR math test on Tuesday next week, second hour. So if you're in my second hour class, log in and I'll get you guys started. So today we're going to wrap the progressives by looking at what progressives did in Washington, D.C. or at the federal level. And then we're going to look at places where progressives didn't get as much done as they maybe would have liked to, or things that they ignored. If there's any time left that you have planned for American history today, please use that as work time and make sure that you're getting that assignment done. Okay. Also, remember the clock is ticking on the last assignment. So if you didn't hand in Progressive Sweep the Nation, you're running out of time on that one. And again, if you have any questions, please let me know. So the progressives in DC or the progressives in the White House, obviously the president has an important impact on what happens in the country. Now he's not, so far they're all he's not the only one. You have to have Congress on your side, the House of Representatives and the Senate, in order to really get anything done. Now, from 1900 to 1915, we really kind of had three people who spent most of the time as president, and that was Teddy Roosevelt, who did 2 terms, Taft, William Howard Taft, who did 1 term, and then Woodrow Wilson, who was elected in 1912 and went through the end of World War I and a little bit beyond. So during the progressive era, we saw people who really shared that progressive ideal. Maybe not all the time, maybe not in everything that they did, but they definitely had this opinion that the work that the progressives were doing was good. And I tried to highlight a few of the things that they did that were considered very progressive that kind of have an impact on us today. And one of the things that they did that was kind of important, and was very important at the time, and still plays a role today, but it's probably not something that you pay much attention to or know, is that they took on big businesses that were doing things illegally. Businesses that were trying to get monopolies or trusts where you have like full domination of a type of industry. If you have full domination, you can set the price really high, set the quality really low. You don't have to have good customer service, because if people wanted to buy colored pencils and Crayola was the only choice, this just happened to be what was near me, then Crayola could make really crappy pencils and charge you a really high price, because if you needed them, they're your only choice. And while that happens sometimes in the real world when something is new, usually competition is good for business. And so the progressive presidents, especially Roosevelt, took on big businesses that were abusing their monopolies, that were using their domination of an industry to jack up the price. Now, in particular, Roosevelt went after Standard Oil, which was the largest oil company in the world. He went after some of the banking industries. He went after the railroad industry, where the the consumer, the regular everyday American, was being cheated. Today, some of the things that have been hit by antitrust or monopoly lawsuits would be Microsoft. Zuckerberg's different social media platforms have been hit with some of these things, not to mention other various technology companies. It's a lot of tech stuff that gets hit with the monopoly things. Now, Roosevelt felt that there was a difference, though. He went after ones that he considered to be bad and let businesses or monopolies that were good kind of keep going. And the hard part about that is who decides good, bad. Roosevelt did it by looking at how they were, with the quality of the product, the price of the product, and how the consumer was being treated. Taft continued that work after Roosevelt was done as president. The progressive presidents also suggested what later became the 17th Amendment. Each state gets 2 senators for a grand total of 100 senators now. So those are obviously, and they're 6-year terms. So those are very important positions that your state elects. However, it hasn't always been that way. Senators used to be chosen by the political parties within the state. So whatever party got the most votes just got to hand pick the people that were your senators for 6 years. And so you didn't have any say in 2 of the more important people that represented you. Well, the 17th Amendment basically says that regular everyday people will elect their senators to the U.S. government. Again, giving people more control, giving people more say in what happens within their state and the federal government. One of the really big accomplishments that Teddy Roosevelt did, and then there's kind of 2 I'm going to talk about here, that's thus the others, is the Pure Food and Drug Act. When Roosevelt read The Jungle, he was disgusted. He was sickened. He actually thought about giving up meat. And if you look at Roosevelt, he is a sturdy dude. I'm not saying he's small or that he's heavy, because he's kind of a stocky dude, but he was grossed out. And so he went to Chicago and he looked at the meatpacking industry and he looked at other various products that people bought, and they passed the Pure Food and Drug Act. Now, what the Pure Food and Drug Act does is it does a bunch of different stuff. But to sum it up really simply, it puts rules and standards on the production of our food. All right. The cleanliness standards for the factories, how the food is made, and then the quality of the food on the back end. Things like you can't have just random stuff in there. You can't not clean the vat out if Billy falls in, things like that. But it also provides for testing of that food to make sure it is of a certain quality. The other thing that it does, and the same thing goes with prescription drugs, the other thing that it does is it requires, and I've got a cherry Pepsi Zero here, it requires all of this stuff to be on products. Now, they didn't know all this back in the day, but it required the ingredients to be put on so that people knew what they were getting, so that they weren't sneaking like oil into this, which actually was a pretty common ingredient in a lot of medications, was a small amount of oil, gave it thickness. That's weird to think about. But so we can go to the store and we can go, oh, I'm allergic to, I don't know, phenylalanine. And you can go, oh, that's in this, I don't want to buy that. Or you go, why is there blah, blah, blah in my stuff? One of the weirdest things is some juices or energy drinks have this thing called glycerol ester of wood rosin. It's not bad for you. It just sounds weird. But like, I wouldn't have known that was a thing without the Pure Food and Drug Act. And so when new foods are introduced, the Pure Food and Drug Act tests them and kind of checks on them to make sure that they're okay. One of the other things that Roosevelt did that Taft kind of continued on with is Roosevelt started the national park system. Roosevelt was an outdoorsman and a conservationist and believed that our land was a treasure. And so he started the national park system to not only protect land, but to make sure that some of the cooler things in our country are protected so that Americans would be able to see them for generations. Roosevelt did a number of other progressive things, but I think those are 2 of the major ones that impact probably the things that you guys are interested in. Unfortunately, Roosevelt did his 2 terms, and back then he could have run for a third, but he basically said, if it was good enough for Washington, it was good enough for me. They asked him what he was going to do, and he was a hunter, so he said, I'm going to go to Africa and go on a safari and hunt everything. Okay, I don't know if you agree with that, and that's okay if you don't. But he said, hey, since I'm not going to be here, why don't you go vote for my good friend Taft? Now, this very stout man right here is William Howard Taft. Now, Taft's great claim to fame, according to some historical books, is that he actually got stuck in the White House bathtub. Now, not like I've fallen and I can't get up, but like he was wedged. Like he was kind of a big dude. Let's just go with that. Now, Taft kept up a lot of Roosevelt's policies, but unfortunately, when Roosevelt came back from Africa, he became one of Taft's biggest critics because he felt like he was taking it too easy on the trusts and monopolies. He felt like he wasn't doing enough to take care of the lands of America. He felt like he wasn't being progressive enough. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. Roosevelt was a pretty forward-moving person, like a bull on steroids, okay? And so Roosevelt announced that he wanted to run for president. Well, Woodrow Wilson was running for one party, Taft was running for the other. There was no place for Roosevelt. And so Roosevelt actually created his own third party, which he called the Progressive Party. And it was nicknamed the Bull Moose Party because someone asked him, said, "Sir, you're getting awfully old." Blah, blah, blah. He said, "I'm as healthy as a bull moose." Now, I guess that means he's pretty healthy. I don't know. All right. So in the election of 1912, what ended up happening was Roosevelt and Taft really split one of the party's votes. Woodrow Wilson got the votes he should have gotten, and Woodrow Wilson became the president of the United States in 1912. Woodrow Wilson was a former university president, so he was very academic. He saw the problems in the United States and looked at them very analytically, like almost like they were a math problem. And so he continued on a number of progressive things. Even throughout World War I, Woodrow Wilson tried to keep that social change and political movement going in the United States. However, the progressives did fall short, and they fell short in exactly the places that you would probably predict. They often ignored. It's not that they fell short, they just ignored, it seemed like, issues of race and gender rights. Now, African American people, Black people were fighting for their own rights at this time, so they were being progressive in their own field. Women had been fighting for the right to vote or suffrage for a really, really long time. And so the things that the whole progressive movement seemed to ignore were women's suffrage or the women's right to vote, and then Jim Crow or segregation in the South. Again, it's not that it wasn't important. The progressives just felt like there were bigger problems on the table. But those things weren't completely ignored because women made large strides during the progressive era to get themselves the right to vote. A number of protests. Some states gave women the right to vote. It was being more seriously considered. Women went on strike and claimed that they weren't going to do certain things if they weren't allowed the right to vote. And obviously in the South, you had groups that were fighting against the idea of segregation, and in the North as well. One of the major groups that did that was called the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, which was started by W.E.B. Du Bois and actually seven white guys. And they fought for equality and were going to give legal representation in court cases to anybody who was found guilty of crimes involved with segregation. You also had Booker T. Washington, again, kind of a Martin Luther King Jr. figure of his time, fighting for those rights as well. And so the movement for Black rights was large. However, they were not getting the help from the white side or the major group of progressives the way that they probably should. They felt that there were just bigger things out there. Obviously, about this time, World War I is starting in Europe, and American eyes are starting to shift and going, can we stay out of this? Do we need to get involved? What's going on? And thus the progressive movement starts to taper off. Now, obviously today, but how do we succeed where they failed? There are a number of things that the progressives didn't get fully taken care of. They made a start, or like this slide, they kind of ignored things. And so the question is, how do we succeed where they failed? Is it Black Lives Matter? Is it going to be something else? Is it still the NAACP? Is it the federal government? Is it the state government? Does it have to be the people? What's the answer to fixing the things that are wrong with our country? And can the progressive plan or progressive model be used today in order to make life in the United States better? So think about that, because obviously you live here, and if you're a social gospelite, you believe that by making the life of one person better, you're making the life of everybody better. So tomorrow's going to be test day. Now, if you're wondering, a lot of multiple choice and matching, some vocabulary, things like initiative, recall, referendum, some questions about things like muckrakers, the Pure Food and Drug Act. How did schools change? All right. And so, be prepared. Remember, it is going to be open notes. So hopefully you've got down the things you need to get down in this unit. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.